He prayed in Masjid An-Nabawi. He taught hadith to young students. He prayed at night, made dua, increased worship. But still, he felt blocked, as though something stood between him and relief. Peace be upon you and Allah's mercy and blessings. A brother sent this story to Al-Ustadh Muhammad Hajazi, speaking about one of the hardest periods of his life. He says, I was a teacher and I also had a business. But one day, he was deceived by someone he trusted. And slowly, everything collapsed. He lost his business. Debts piled up. His mental state deteriorated. And the pressure became overwhelming. He says, my debts almost killed me emotionally. So he searched desperately for work until Allah opened a door for him in Masjid An-Nabawi, teaching young students hadith. And because he loved knowledge, he began studying hadith more deeply and memorizing as much as he could. He says he became committed to praying nearly 3 prayers daily inside the Prophet's mosque. Imagine that. Praying in Masjid An-Nabawi, teaching hadith, making dua. Yet despite all of this, he still did not feel relief. And this is what confused him deeply. Because many people believe if I worship more, everything should immediately become easy. But he says, I felt there was still something missing. He kept praying at night, begging Allah to settle his debts, asking Allah for relief. And although part of the debt was eventually paid, he still felt blocked, as though there was a hidden barrier between him and the answer. Then he says something extremely important. He says, the devil began whispering to me, telling me that none of my worship would be accepted. And this is one of the most dangerous traps of shaitan, not simply making a person sin, but making them lose hope in Allah. Still, he refused to give up. So he began searching deeply into istighfar, adhkar, supplications, hadiths, verses related to forgiveness. He searched online for different forms of istighfar, until eventually he found the channel of Al-Ustadh Muhammad Hajazi. He began listening carefully to the stories people shared, stories of hardship, stories of relief, stories of istighfar changing lives. And he said to himself, these people have no reason to lie. They are calling Allah to witness over their stories. And then he thought, this contains no haram, no innovation. So why shouldn't I increase in istighfar? And from that moment, his life slowly began changing. He says, I began making istighfar in huge amounts. 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, some days more, some days less. And alongside istighfar, he added tasbih, tahmid, Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, even if only 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, consistently. Not perfectly, but consistently. Then after around 2 months, he says openings began appearing in his life. His emotional state slowly improved. His happiness began returning. His family became happier. And even some strange disturbances disappeared. But there was another painful part of the story. A beloved relative of his had been suffering severely from seer. He says, I left no door without trying to help him. Until finally, Allah guided them to a man who performed ruqya. And subhanallah, clear signs of healing began appearing. The brother says something deeply important after this. He realized that shaitan constantly tries to distract people between different adhkar and supplications. One day shaitan whispers, this dhikr is better. Another day, no, this dua is better. Until eventually, the person abandons consistency completely, and laziness enters. But then he says something powerful. He says, I realize this dhikr alone is enough, but the mountains of sin standing between us and relief are enormous, and adhkar crush those mountains little by little. Then he gave a beautiful example. He said, when you climb a tree, keep climbing until you reach its fruits. Do not climb halfway, then look at another tree and say, that one looks better, then climb down and start again somewhere else. Because this is exactly what many people do spiritually. They constantly move between routines, adhkar, plans, habits without remaining consistent long enough to see the fruits. Then he says, I made a covenant with myself, never to leave this path again. To continue, istighfar, repentance, Quran, adhkar morning and evening, and maybe someone listening tonight feels exactly like this brother once felt. Maybe you pray, maybe you make dua, maybe you try to worship sincerely, yet still feel blocked, still delayed, still overwhelmed. But perhaps the answer is not abandoning worship. Perhaps the answer is consistency, persistence, istighfar, and refusing to let shaitan make you despair of Allah's mercy. because Allah never abandons the servant who keeps returning to Him.